You're listening to the Savage Lovecast, Dan Savage's sex and relationship show for grown-ups. If you're under 18, get out of here, young'un.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Wear sunscreen. It's a small thing, but it's a thing you can actually do, a thing you can control, unlike so many other things right now. So do this. Wear sunscreen. I didn't do it. I didn't wear sunscreen on my arms, despite being urged to do so by an elderly neighbor 35 years ago in Madison, Wisconsin, who was worried about my forearms. But I was never a sunbather. I just rode around a lot in the summer on my bike, only my arms exposed, never shirtless. I was never a Speedo gay. So I didn't think I needed to worry about sunscreen. Anyway, I now have sun damage on my forearms. I promise this is going somewhere relevant to a sex podcast. I was recently treated by my excellent dermatologist for this sun damage, and the long-term results should be good, but the short-term results of the treatment I just received, a lot of red sores all over my forearms. I was hanging out with a friend last week, a gay friend, and feeling a little self-conscious about these sores on my arms, and I said to him, "Ugh, it looks like I have KS." And there was a pause. And then my friend, my gay friend, who's almost 30 and a scientist, he said to me, "What's KS?" Kaposi sarcoma. It was a cancer. It still is a cancer, but it's an incredibly rare cancer. Or it was rare once and is again. Wasn't so rare during the HIV/AIDS epidemic, when it suddenly exploded. Not only did my gay friend, an adult, sexually active gay man on PrEP, not only hadn't he ever heard of KS, he was only vaguely aware of how exactly it was HIV worked, how HIV killed you. And I found myself explaining to him that HIV didn't destroy you, it didn't kill you, it destroyed your immune system. That's why they called it AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And once your immune system was gone, HIV allowed OIs like KS, opportunistic infections like Kaposi sarcoma. Our brains, if you're over 50, are still stuffed with all these acronyms. HIV allowed OIs like KS to kill you. There was a long list of OIs we had to worry about, but KS was really the worst. It was painful and disfiguring. The incidence of KS before HIV, which struck mainly the elderly and people with severely compromised immune systems before the epidemic, was 6 in a million. At the height of the AIDS crisis in the early 1990s, it was 50 in a million, nearly a tenfold increase, and that increase was concentrated among gay men, a tiny percentage of the population, less than 2% of the population, who themselves were concentrated in certain parts of big cities. So you saw men with KS, if you were gay and lived in the city, everywhere you went. And a sore, a KS lesion, was often the first sign that you were getting sick. Sometimes you spotted a sore on a friend that they hadn't even noticed yet, maybe on their back, and you knew they were dying before they did. As I was explaining these things to my gay friend, I got a little weepy, just teared up. I'm a crier, but I just teared up a little. Because it wasn't until this moment with my friend that I realized or became consciously aware of the fact that I live in a world now where fully grown-ass adult gay men have no idea what KS is. None of my gay male friends under 40 that I asked about it this week had ever heard of KS. And isn't that wonderful? This thing, something we all had to worry about, all of us gay men, all the time, something we lived in terror of, something we ached for guys who we could see had it and were going through it. It was not something younger gay men ever even had to think about, much less know about, much less worry about because of PrEP, a daily medication gay and bi men take that protects them from HIV infection, and because of meds that make it impossible for gay men who have HIV to infect others, or go on from having HIV to developing full-blown AIDS. Someone with HIV now, if they're in treatment, if they have access to medications, won't develop full-blown AIDS. They will have a normal lifespan, and they won't infect anyone else with HIV. My happiness was not short-lived. I am still very happy about all of this. But all roads lead back to politics right now, and our politics are very distressing. And I am very distressed in particular right now about a case before the Supreme Court this session, Braidwood versus Becerra. Zooming out for a second, they, and I don't need to tell you who they are, they want to bring back not just measles and not just polio and not just routine air disasters. Woke up this morning to the news that Elon Musk, who flies in a private plane, fired hundreds of FAA employees today because fuck you and everyone else who flies commercial. They want to bring back KS and measles and polio too. They, Christian conservatives, want this to be something all gay men everywhere of all ages have to fear again. The Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, requires health insurance plans to cover preventative treatments at no cost. Cancer screenings, prenatal care, preventative heart condition treatments. Covering these things saves healthcare dollars in the long run because it's cheaper to prevent the disease in many than treat the disease in a few. And one of the preventative treatments required by Obamacare is PrEP. This case, this challenge to Obamacare, was brought by a firm in Texas, Braidwood Management, which does, I don't know what exactly. All I can find out about them online is that they brought this lawsuit and that the company is owned by Christians. No idea if Braidwood has any gay employees on PrEP, but if they do, they want to see them dead, it seems. Braidwood went to court to challenge the ACA's requirement to provide any preventative care at all, not just PrEP, but especially PrEP, on the grounds that the Bible, quote, is the authoritative and inerrant word of God, and providing gay and bi men with PrEP, quote, facilitates and encourages homosexual behavior and sexual activity outside of marriage between one man and one woman. The lower court has already sided with Braidwood, and I don't have a lot of confidence that this Supreme Court, packed with Trump appointees, is going to rule in favor of preventative HIV care for gay men. If the court should rule in Braidwood's favor, this, according to the Yale School of Public Health, is going to lead to 2,000 more annual HIV infections among Americans, and more deaths from cancer and heart disease and higher rates of infant mortality, because a pile of dead babies is a price the religious right is willing to pay if it kills a few fags. They love America. They sure do seem to hate Americans. So, gay men, like I warned you, the same people coming for abortion medications, coming for women's birth control pills, they were coming all along for our death control pills. And if you're one of the gay men out there that voted for this, a tiny percentage of gay men, I don't know what to tell you, except go fuck yourselves, because no one else is going to want to fuck you. One last thing before we start the show. I was looking for a good sex scandal a couple of weeks ago. Couldn't find one when I needed one, but Delta 35, superstar commenter at savage.love, dug up one for me. A Mormon conversion therapist is going to jail. You'll love to see it. For sexually abusing his clients, something you don't like to see, among other crimes. These were men who came to him to overcome their same-sex attractions, which Scott Dale Owen, a therapist and a Mormon bishop, which Scott Dale Owen attempted to cure by putting his balls in their mouths. He led the men to believe teabagging them was part of their therapy. Maybe he had super ugly balls and this was some sort of attempt at aversion therapy, but yeah, that's not how it works. Conversion therapy, of course, never works, but someone putting their balls in your mouth just kind of makes you want more balls in your mouth. Ask me how I know. All right, one last thing. Hump Film Fest kicked off in Seattle, San Francisco, and Portland this weekend. Go check out the trailer at humpfilmfest.com and get tickets to see Hump when it comes to a city near you. All right, coming up on the show today, tons of your Qs, lots of my As. We've got a fully packed show for our micro listeners, and our extra this week for our Magnum subs. Meredith Goldstein joins me for the interview on the Magnum. Meredith writes the Love Letters advice column for the Boston Globe and hosts the Love Letters podcast. It's a second opinion segment. Meredith and I talk about the advice biz, how we got into it, how it's changed over the years. We also give advice to listeners in the throes of NRE, mistreated unicorns, and all those self-identified ass men out there. We see you. Your feelings are valid. And we have some good advice for you. Also, Magnum subs, mark your calendars. Our next Savage Love Live, that's a special show exclusively for our Magnum subs, is on Wednesday, March 13th at noon Pacific. If you're a micro listener to the Savage Lovecast and you want to get an invite to Savage Love Live and enjoy the other perks of being one of my subs, go to savage.love and become my sub now. All right, let's get to the first call. This episode is brought to you by Field, an app where curious people come to connect. Download Field on the App Store or Google Play and find out why so many of my listeners are already using it.
This episode of the Lovecast is brought to you by the good folks at Squarespace. They make it easy to build a beautiful website, blog, or online store. Head on over to squarespace.com/savage for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
This episode is sponsored by Hims, affordable access to ED treatment, all online. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. 37-year-old female here, dating 37-year-old male. Found on his phone when I was looking up concert tickets that he was looking up pages and pages of escorts. When I talked to him about it, he indicated that it was just to jerk off, and he has never contacted any or paid for sex in his life. He then provided me bank statements which prove that to be true. I am just wondering, is this normal?
When I was a teenager, back before the internet existed, I used to go to the Morris L stop on the Howard Line, now the Red Line in Chicago, to the newsstand to buy a copy of The Village Voice, which you could get there. They were a month old. I didn't really follow politics in New York. I read some of the politics stuff, though, and the arts criticism and got into it, but I bought it for the ads at the back for the handful of gay, dirty porn movie theaters in New York City at the time, so I could jack off to them. I had a giant collect. My mother thought it was really crazy that I was so interested in New York City. She thought it was the theater. She thought I was going to move there. And no, I was just like jacking off to the dirty movie theater ads. So I believe this is a thing that could happen, that a guy would look up escort ads and treat them like the porn they often are. And, you know, it's crazy how what you used to have to buy a magazine to see is now what sex workers used to pay for a magazine, and a model would be paid for her pictures to be in a magazine, ideally, hopefully, and paid a lot. Now is the shingle that escort sex workers, porn models, content creators hang out on the internet. And for most people, that's not good enough. They want to see the moving images, or they want to get with the person. But I can totally wrap my head around there being straight guys out there who are just dinking through the ads, looking at the ladies jacking off to the shingle hanging outside the store. That makes total intuitive sense to me. I could see why, in your shoes, if this is a monogamous relationship and you struggle with these feelings that so many people in monogamous relationships struggle with, this unrealistic expectation that your partner should only have eyes for you, all that romantic ideal crap that gets shoved down our throat, being confronted with the fact that, of course, your partner sometimes looks at other people and has a wank about other people and may compulsively flip through escort ads on the internet like I compulsively flipped through dirty movie porn shop ads at the back of the Village Voice when I was a teenager, that would be unsettling. And so your partner, who has gone out of his way to prove to you that he is not seeing escorts by sharing his bank statements with you, not entirely dispositive. Sometimes it's a cash economy, but most of these transactions are electronic now. And if he opened that up to you, I take him at his word and at his bank statement that he's not actually doing this. He's just looking and maybe fantasizing a little bit, as I assume you may look and fantasize. I hope you look and fantasize a little bit about the other people you might get with. I hope you have a zone of erotic autonomy that you enjoy visiting without your partner, with the man you're dating, and then ask him to cover his tracks a little better because you want to be able to stuff this down the memory hole and not think about it. And in exchange for him making an effort to cover his tracks a little better, don't go looking for it. Don't look for evidence of what you should just assume to be true, that this is a thing your partner does when he jacks off. Sometimes he looks at escort ads, doesn't see escorts, isn't putting you in any risk of a sexually transmitted infection, is being faithful, and just let him Don't police him. Just let him, on the condition that he demonstrates his consideration for your feelings by making it possible for you to stuff this down the memory hole, by not neglecting to clear his browser history, not doing it on his phone next to you at night when he thinks you're sleeping, but maybe you're half awake and looking at his phone too, glancing over, that he just be considerate. And then no police state. Police states are death to good erotic connections between long-term partners. You can't have a police state and an active, fun sex life in a long-term relationship. You have to pick one or the other. A lot of people pick the police state. I don't get it. Seems nuts to me. So, yeah, this is a thing. I'm sure some other people are going to call in and say this is a thing that they've done. When Craigslist came along, I compulsively looked through Craigslist just because it was so fascinating. It's a thing. It's a thing. It's like potato chips. It's just so easy to flip through them. And your partner, when he jacks off looking at escort ads, probably looks at hundreds because it's so easy to blip through them before he lands on the one that he's going to jerk off about. So this is a thing, but you don't have to make it into a bigger thing than it actually is. And it's definitely not a thing I think you should end an otherwise good and satisfying and open and honest relationship over.
Hey, Dan. I'm a 38-year-old bisexual male who recently, in the last year and a half, came out as bisexual. Up until that point, I'd been in committed, monogamous, heterosexual relationships, the most recent one being 8 years. Always been gay friendly, but never really had like the right person come along or the situation that actually made me realize that, yeah, I'm all about it. So I'm now with my boyfriend, who is just fantastic. I love being fucked by him. I love him. He's great. But what I find difficult is the duality of being bisexual, and like I enjoy being fucked, but don't get excited about every guy out there. I'm more or less only really interested in my boyfriend. We go to an orgy and I'm not jumping on it, and he's, like more or less holding himself back even though we're in an open relationship. And my problem is that I kind of, I want to experience some of that open sexuality with both men and women, and it seems like the male environment is just so much easier to do. Like orgies are there, and I just don't know where this environment is for, like, I know it exists, but I don't know how to get to it. Like where heterosexual or bisexual or whatever, openness of orgies and situations. And I think if I was able to play in that situation, it would make my relationship easier because my boyfriend would see that, I'm also going out and enjoying, but where our connection is there, but yet we can be sexually free and do whatever we want. And it's all new to me, like I never was in an open relationship before, so I'm getting used to it. But like, I feel almost sexually frustrated that I can't fully live this new life because I just don't understand it yet. Where do people go to find these like play parties or whatever that isn't just gay? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love the gay community. I'm all about this life. But I'm bisexual, and I want to scratch all the itches. And, I have a very supportive boyfriend. This is my chance to like have a good committed relationship and still play around. So any recommendations there, I'd really appreciate it.
The parties you seek, I know they're out there. I hear about them. I get calls from people who've attended them, but I honestly don't know where to send you online to find them. You want to find a sleazy gay orgy, you get on Sniffies, or you make some gay friends, and you will hear about the afters, and you will hear about the hookups. I have a friend who was walking home alone one night from a dinner party in Provincetown and just got snagged on the street, invited, not dragged off, not kidnapped, to come to a house party that was, he was told before he agreed to come to the house party, an orgy, and wound up at a big gay orgy. I'm not sure if that's happened to bi guys where there were houses full of women. Because unlike gay men and gay male sex parties and gay male public sex environments and spaces, although violence is, of course, something that gay men have to think about and worry about, it's not something that gay men move through their lives having to control for all the time, the way women have to control for male violence and sexual violence all the time. And so play parties that are mixed outside of, Black Swan event kind of clubs like the Kit Kat Club in Berlin, big mixed play parties where there are lots of people of all genders and sexual orientations playing together, are a little harder to set up. They don't happen, there are commercial spaces outside of, a place like the Kit Kat Club in Berlin and some other big clubs where this happens, and it's not something that people just kind of arrange on the fly. It's something that is carefully coordinated, and participants are often screened, and solo men or men coming in pairs is often not allowed, so that there's a gender balance and women feel safe because they're not outnumbered 10-1, which is something that women want, but women will, partner with people like Doc Chocolate to make that happen for themselves. So I'm just tossing this. I know it happens. I'm tossing this out there to my listeners because I know a lot of my listeners are dirty birds who go to sex parties, and a lot of you are straight and a lot of you are bi, and you go to mixed sex parties, or you have some experience making a mixed sex party like the kind of sex party this caller is seeking happen for yourselves. What's your advice? Call in or write in. Let this caller know how to find his way to the parties that I know are happening, because I hear about them, but I actually don't know, despite having heard about them for all these years, how exactly you find them, especially the ones where male sexual contact is allowed. There's a lot of swingers events where woman-on-woman sexual contact is allowed and encouraged and often performed. But male sexual contact is discouraged or disallowed in some cases. So how does this caller find his way to the right sex party for him? Give us a call. Give us a tip. Let us know where to go. Let him know where to go.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. As you may have heard, the Hump Film Festival is in full swing, baby. It's a complicated event with ticket sales, showtimes, video, and newsletters. And listen, if we didn't have Squarespace handling the nuts and bolts of the website, we'd be losing our freaking minds. Here's a sample of the kind of thing they offer. Analytics. That's the analytics song. Measure your end-to-end online performance with powerful website and seller analytics. Get insights on top traffic sources, understand how your reach is growing, track sales metrics, and learn where to focus new engagement. It's all the data you need to scale your brand or business, fully integrated, clearly displayed. Videos collection. Upload video content, even special video content. Organize your video library and showcase what you got on beautiful video pages. You can even sell access to your video library by adding a paywall to your content. That's what we do. And you can do this too, but you got to get Squarespace. Squarespace also has powerful built-in SEO and commerce tools so you can quickly get a site up and running that supports your business. Head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/savage and use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/savage and use the offer code SAVAGE.
Hey, Dan. I'm a early 30s bi, queer, poly person living in the Pacific Northwest. I'm partnered with a nesting partner, and I have a young kid with him. And I'm just starting to date someone new, a beautiful, awesome, inspiring woman. And I'm really excited about her, but it's super new. So I live next door to my mom. She's been a really awesome part of our life and a great support system, especially with our toddler. And my question is, when do I tell her that I'm dating someone? So for context, she's been a little awkward about polyamory in the past, but ultimately supportive. I think it makes her a little uncomfortable. And this new person I'm dating has been around a time or two, but I haven't explicitly been Mom, we're screwing. I've kind of been oh, I'll just wait till she picks up on it. But I don't know, that feels a little bit like it might just be in the closet, not hiding something. But I also want to run my mom on a need to know basis. I don't want to involve her too much in my sex and dating life or update her too much. But yeah, I'm kind of struggling with the balance there, because I also want to honor, this really new relationship and be open and transparent with my family about where I'm at with it.
Couple things. Easier to run your parent or parents on a need to know basis when your parents don't live next door and your parents aren't providing you with childcare. So they're not folded into the business of your daily life in the way it sounds like your mother is. So you may need to run your mother on a slightly more informed basis than somebody else might run their mother on. That said, and it's going to sound a little paradoxical, I think, but one of the ways we demonstrate to somebody that we're serious about them is by not introducing them to friends and family, well, family over friends too quickly, not getting out over your skis, not making promises early in the relationship, in the honeymoon stage, in the limerence stage, that you might not be able to keep when you hit the 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months in stage where, you know, you're through the dating vetting process and you're deciding whether this is somebody that you do have long-term potential with. But if you've already embedded that person in your family life and folded them in, it's harder to break the fuck up with them if you need to break the fuck up with them, and potentially more traumatic to break the fuck up with them if you need to break the fuck up with them. So if you're serious about this woman, and it's possible not to go to your mother and say, hey, we're fucking, we just started, don't. One of the ways we run our parents, not just on a need-to-know basis, I think, is on the assumption that our parents aren't idiots basis. Your mom knows you're bi, your mom knows you're poly, your mom sees this new person around and that she can see that maybe this person is more than friends or being, you know, around a little bit more than friends or around at a time of day that friends wouldn't normally be around, like clearly slept over or whatever it might be. And your mom can add that up, can put 2 and 2 or one together. And when you go to her, you know, in 6 months, when you're pretty sure that this is somebody who's going to be around for a while and say, we're dating, she'll go, if your mom's not an idiot, and I don't think your mom is, I'm going to operate under the assumption that your mom isn't, your mom will go, yeah, I kind of figured. And allow your mom to have her discomfort with poly. I say this as a poly person. As someone who practices polyamory, I don't think poly is something someone is, but as someone who practices polyamory, sex, dating, it's inherently chaotic and unstable. And what our parents want most for us is to see us settle down, is to get us through chaos and instability into a stable place. And there's something about being poly, which part of what you're inviting into your life is a little bit of the chaos and instability of romantic possibility. And of course, a parent is going to be wary of that, especially when there's a small child involved. What your mom wants for you and for her grandchild is stability and constancy and familiarity and routine, all of which are good for children. And I think one of the ways as a poly person you demonstrate to your parent that you have the emotional maturity to invite into your life the controlled chaos of dating or dating into your life, dating other people besides your nesting partner, in such a way that the chaos will be contained and controlled, is not introducing your mom to a new partner, somebody you just started dating before that person is someone you're sure about wanting to continue dating or get more serious about. So allow your mom to have that parental prejudice to stability and familiarity that is threatened by the introduction of new partners. Sex, desire, lust is chaos. One of the things that people in monogamous relationships sacrifice is the thrill of that chaos. One of the things that poly people have to admit in being poly is we're courting that chaos. And that can impact our existing relationships in a way that isn't always positive, that requires kind of communication or processing that makes it possible for polyamorous people to practice polyamory in a functional and healthy way. So this is me, like, as a parent, as a poly person, saying to you, this is great. I'm glad you have a parent nearby and that kind of support system. I'm glad you have a nesting partner. Congratulations on having a kid with your nesting partner, building a life together. Congratulations on your new relationship, and continue to run your mom on a need-to-know basis, and your mom doesn't need to know about this person yet, and it's too soon, from the sounds of things, for you to be introducing this person as a new romantic partner when you've just started fucking them. So don't. Run your mom on both that need-to-know basis and also the assumption that mom's not an idiot. and that you'll probably already have figured it out when the time comes to tell her, which will be in about 5 more months. This episode is brought to you by Field. No more dates that feel like job interviews. In 2025, we deserve a space where we can show up just as we are, ready to meet others just as they are. On Field, you have the breathing room to explore your desires, think relationship anarchy, cuddling, being a brat, and find communities that share your interests. Think D&D, tennis, zine making. Free from ads and completely independent, this is the place that draws curious, playful, open-minded people, the ones you've been looking for. Field really supports people who are evolving in their sexuality. There's no limit to how many times you can change your sexuality, your desires, interests, gender identity. In fact, 62% of Field members evolve their sexuality, interests, and desires within their first year on the app. In a space without any expectation, you can feel free to find true expressions of yourself. As part of the Field community, you'll quickly find that people regularly practice honesty and openness on Field. Whether it's about the relationship structures you're interested in or experiences you'd like to explore, this is the place where you don't have to waste any of your time wondering what someone is looking for or slow rolling what you're looking for. And there's room for friends. Connection comes in many forms, and Field is a space for all of it. Whether you just moved to a new city and need a new community, or you're traveling and looking to meet new people, it's possible to find besties here. No algorithmic gatekeeping. The only person who can determine what you like is you. To honor the complexity of human desire, to honor the complexity of you, Field presents you all options and leaves you in control of your experience. Bring your people along. In life, we're not islands, so why should we appear so online? Field's new Constellation feature lets you link profiles with your friends and lovers, so new connections will see who you are within your social context. Start a group chat, find your people with your people. Download Field on the App Store or Google Play and find out why so many of my listeners are already on Field. And we're excited to announce that we are going to be partnering with Field to find stories of first-time adventures. Stay tuned.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 58-year-old heteroflexible female, and I'm polyamorous, and I have a new partner who is male, and we have a wonderful connection. There's a couple things about his body that are different than I've seen in any other male or female for that matter. Number one, he has spontaneous full body orgasms. In fact, we were out to dinner and we were talking, kissing, holding hands, and all of a sudden he started moaning and carrying on, and I was kind of worried, and I asked him, is everything okay? And he said, in a whispering voice, blushing a bit, I just had a full body orgasm sitting here talking to you. And I was pretty amazed. This was our first date, by the way. And then when we did become intimate, I noticed that his area between his legs, he has a penis and he has balls, but he has what look like labia minora kind of around the bottom of his penis, and then he has a concave area between his penis and his balls. So I've never experienced such a thing in a man. And so I, explored the area and, since it's concave, put almost my whole hand in there. And it was quite exciting for him. It was certainly exciting and exploratory for me, something really new. I know that people's genitalia are completely different, but I'm wondering if this area that he has a name, and if you have heard of others who have kind of these spontaneous full body orgasms, like when they're sitting at a table at dinner.
The only thing I really feel qualified to speak to in response to your question is the taint issue. The taint is not the area between the balls and the shaft. The taint is the area behind the balls and before the asshole. Taint your balls, taint your asshole. It's the area before the root of the penis, actually. There is erectile tissue there. In males, and the taint in females is the area between the vaginal opening and the asshole. Taint the vag, taint the asshole. It's not a no man's land. It's a frequently visited by men land and by women land. And that's it. That's the extent of my expertise that I can bring to bear on your question. It is possible that this person that you slept with, this man, he identifies as a man, that you slept with is intersex, is an intersex condition. Some people who are intersex have both male and female genitalia. It is possible that he's had kind of gender confirmation surgery. There are people who have had bottom surgery, but rather than have their penis removed and a vagina built in its place, they've added an opening and neolabia and basically gotten both. They got bottom surgery not to subtract something and add something, but to add something and keep what was already there. That could be him. It's not just a concave area. If you can get your whole fist in there, that is something other than just an indentation. That's not concave. That is an entrance. Of what sort? I don't know. He knows, and maybe as he gets to know you better, he will confide in you or share with you what's up with his very unique sounding genitals or collection of genitals. It is crazy sometimes how people are comfortable being sexual and intimate and having physical contact with somebody else and not necessarily yet comfortable talking with that person about what they're going to find when they're physically intimate. Or maybe he's just so in his body and it's so normal for him that he's comfortable sharing his body and figures if you have questions, you'll ask him, but you asked me, and I don't have the answers for you specifically about his genitals. Only he has the answers. So you might, if you keep seeing him, want to disinhibit and ask him this fascinating question. As for that whole body orgasm, I'm sorry. Sounds like bullshit to me, like unfalsifiable. Sure, I kind of roll my eyes when people talk about Tantra and how they can, without any touching, without just like thinking, induce a full body orgasm, and they shiver and shiver. And I'm like, okay, sure, maybe that's happening, but how do I know for sure that's happening? Sometimes people like to pretend they have superpowers they don't have, and they can't pretend to fly. We can tell if they're not flying, but we can't necessarily tell if they're not having a magic, super other plane, spiritual, 18-dimensional, all-body orgasm that normal mortals aren't able to have, and that makes them special. It sounds like he's special enough without having to make an unfalsifiable claim about an all-body orgasm. That actually makes me think maybe he is having some sort of all-body orgasm because he's already so magical. Why gild the lily with this claim? Maybe this is absolutely something that happens to him spontaneously. Spontaneous orgasms, they are a thing that some people experience. Some people would describe themselves as suffering from spontaneous orgasms. It's not fun necessarily to have an orgasm at your mom's funeral, as I read in a case account once of someone who suffered from spontaneous orgasms. You don't want to be Sally in the diner scene in When Harry Met Sally, but at your mom's funeral and not at a diner. That sounds very upsetting and unfortunate. So maybe that's him. Maybe he has spontaneous orgasms. He's just never had one in a shitty place and doesn't feel weird about it and is excited to share that with new sex partners. Again, a question ultimately, although I really enjoyed speculating, so thank you for the question, but a question ultimately for him. This episode is brought to you by Hims. To my listeners of the Male Persuasion, if you are looking for a boost in the bedroom, you can get medication that will truly help you and get that medication easily, no muss, no fuss. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer. Effective ED treatments can give you that confidence boost you need when you need it most. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your own couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's office visits and all the eye contact that requires. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you, and shipping is free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of subscribers who trust them, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you too. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/savage. That's HIMS.com/savage for your personalized ED treatment options. That's HIMS.com/savage for your personalized ED treatment options. Let them know the Lovecast sent you. Go to hims.com/savage. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hi, Dan, 26-year-old queer female here living in New York City. I usually date women, but I've always been interested in having a throuple with a man and a woman. I finally hit the jackpot and got exactly what I've been looking for. A gorgeous woman and her lovely husband, both of whom I'm very attracted to. It's still very new, only a couple months, but it's going pretty well so far. I have experience with poly relationships and non-monogamy, but for them, this is a bit of a first. And for her, this is her first experience with a woman, though so far she seems to really enjoy it. They seem to have really talked things over and be in a good place emotionally, and they are married. So they seem good. And so far, we've had great conversations when issues or bumps in the road come up with us as kind of a throuple or whatever we want to call us at this point. About jealousy, things of that nature. The issue that we're running into is that while the husband seems to have almost no jealousy, the wife is struggling more than him. She really likes being with me, especially when we fuck, but definitely gets jealous about me and him. I can tell when we're fucking that she's much less happy about me being with him than she is about being me with herself. Specifically, she seems to get nervous afterwards, or sometimes even during, if it comes to the point that me and him are about to have penetrative sex, or if me and him focus on each other or really just not on her a little bit too much. I've also never been alone with either of them. This is getting more difficult for me because they want us all to have a connection, so they say, and for it not to be unequal, where just maybe somebody's only into her or only into him. They really want us all to be connected. But it's really hard for me to build much of a connection with him because we sort of just kind of tiptoe around her now so she doesn't get jealous, and me and him don't really fuck to the level that me and her do. And it's not exactly conducive to being able to form a real connection with him. Last time we had sex, we talked about this, and it seemed like we got to a good place with her jealousy. So I presented the idea that maybe going on an individual date with each of them might be a good idea to keep building on what we have and allow me and her husband to connect, which she says she wants, and for her to trust me more. She doesn't want me to just be into her. She's made that very clear. So I feel like I need time with him so we aren't nervous around her and can explore that we really have something. But she just said she's not comfortable with that. She doesn't want us to have individual dates right now. I'm not sure what to do. I really like them, and I feel like I just need to spend at least a little time with them separately to feel comfortable, even during sex, and for myself in connecting with both of them as individual people. Am I asking too much? I don't know, Dan. Should I insist? Should I drop it? Help. I really want this to work.
This can work with some other couple. This is not going to work with this couple. They are not ready for what they're pretending they're ready for what they are telling you it is that they want. She's not comfortable with you connecting with her husband the way you connect with her. Seeing you connect with her husband sexually threatens her in a way that, because for her maybe she's bisexual but heteroromantic, her connecting with you, it feels a little hypocritical. She can connect with you intensely, but the minute you start connecting with her husband intensely, she gets jealous. Well, it may be that she knows you're potentially a partner for her husband in a way that you are not potentially a partner for her. And so these issues around jealousy and hypocritical and a little self-serving and a little convenient for her, they don't arise for her when she connects with you, because what it means for her to connect with you isn't the same thing it means when you connect with her husband. Sounds like specifically around penetrative sex, which is, I'm guessing, something you don't have with her. You could say to them, listen, I'm happy if you are happy. Maybe this is not what you want. I'm happy to be a sex toy kind of unicorn for a while, and we can just be like, have fun and not try to form any sort of deep emotional connection, and I'll be able to keep my options open. And if some other couple comes along that I'm into, or some other individual, our thing may wind down because I may run off with somebody who wants not just sex, although I really enjoy having sex with both of you, but wants a relationship and sex, which is what I'm ultimately seeking. But we can let this just be sex for right now and take penetrative sex off the menu, because that's clearly a stumbling block right now in our ability to connect, because it threatens you could say to the wife, in a way that is creating conflict. So let's just take PIV off the menu and do oral and roll around, and you and I, wifey, we connect, and your husband and I, out of deference for your insecurities, which may not be eternal, which you may eventually overcome, in part because we're deferring to them and controlling for them and centering you. For now, out of deference to your insecurities, we won't have penetrative sex. And it'll be mostly about you. You will be the sun, and we will be the hot fucking planets that orbit around you for now. Obviously, that's not what I want forever. And if we can't all be equal and have a relationship, then there's not long-term potential here. But for right now, the fucking is great. And who knows? And who knows how you'll feel or where this will go in 3 or 4 more months. Maybe she just needs that time and that deference and that consideration from you two, and that willingness on the both of your parts to set aside, at least for now, the trigger act. There are a lot of people out there who swing, a lot of people out there who have open relationships, a lot of people out there who have secondary partners where there's still something that is reserved for the primary partner sexually. That can seem arbitrary, that can seem unfair. If it seems arbitrary and unfair to you as a third, anybody out there listening in that situation, not the right relationship for you. But if that's the price of admission you're willing to pay to be with a couple, that you don't get everything that they can give to each other, they do give to each other, then don't pay that price of admission. Don't date that couple. But yeah, you can't force them to go on dates with you against their will or against her will. And I would encourage you, again, at least for now, not to do the thing that you know in the moment upsets her, especially if what you want her to feel is safe and comfortable with you. And you can prove that to her at the moment by giving that up, giving up penetrative sex. Not forever, but for now. All right, time for listener feedback. First up, some of the comments left on last week's show in the very lively comment threads at savage.love. Says Liz, for the mom of the 7-month-old, girl, you are breastfeeding. That is why you're not into sex right now. You are still on a wild hormonal ride, and this is your body's way of telling you, I'm busy feeding this baby, not trying to get pregnant again. Breastfeed your baby for as long as you want, and when you stop, you will feel more like yourself again, though still very tired. Says Lenny Lou, Dan, you missed the most important info for the woman not wanting to bang Trumpers. Those dudes are vindictive and hate women, and I've known MAGA dudes to lie and target the women with no MAGA on their profiles. The guys will fawn, pretend to be moderate, sleep with the woman, and then tell her after to see her reaction. Ugh, MAGA men. Ugh, always proving how terrible they are. Says Midwest Feminist, pretty confused by Dan's conversation with Mike Pesca. A lot of you were. Dan and Mike seem to blame the resurgence of toxic masculinity on leftists and checks notes teenage girls for calling it out. How about cis men take some responsibility for the fire inside their house instead of blaming the victims of toxic masculinity and those brave enough to call it what it is? I would respond myself to Midwest feminists, but Pentatonic did a really good job in the comments, so I'm just going to read what he had to say. I don't think, says Pentatonic, they were blaming toxic masculinity on leftists. We certainly weren't blaming it on teenage girls. I think they were blaming the far right's ability to recruit teenage boys and young men, partly on leftists who correctly denounced toxic masculinity without presenting what non-toxic masculinity looks like. The young men felt under attack, and that drove them to the far right, who were all too happy to embrace them with it's not you, you're great, it's the ultra-liberal left here that is to blame. Spot on, Pentatonic, thank you. Look, calling out toxic masculinity, which I have done on this show for years, was obviously the right thing to do. But by not clearly and loudly and repeatedly drawing a distinction between toxic masculinity, a negative, and positive forms and expressions of masculinity, something I also failed to do, we created an opening that the right was able to exploit. That is what we're talking about here. We got to call out problems, but if we don't do it deftly, if we don't guard our rear flanks while we do it, we're going to create more problems for ourselves, and we have enough problems for ourselves as is. All right, for more listener comments, check out the comment section at savage.love. And for longer responses from me to listener comments, check out Struggle Session every Thursday under column at savage.love. And now everybody's favorite part of the show, the part where I shut my mouth and my listeners get the last word.
Hi, Dan. I am calling in response to the girl who had a boyfriend that she felt very meh about that is moving to Canada, and now she's wondering if she should reach out to him. You were so kind and so empathetic, and I'm here to be empathetic in a much different way because I have been both of the people in this situation before. And girl, listen, I can almost guarantee that if this man wasn't moving to Canada, you would not be feeling this way. You would not want to send him a text message. You wouldn't be so curious that you're like lying around in bed, daydreaming like, oh my goodness, what if? Listen to the words that you said, girl. You did not feel very good about this relationship. It sounded very boring coming from you. I mean, we talk about the burden of knowing, girl. This is the burden of curiosity. Like, what if he said yes? What if he said yes? Would you pack up your shit and go to Canada? No. We know you wouldn't. So why don't you delete the message, just jerk off, and then officially move on. Officially. Timestamp it, girl.
Hi, Dan. I'm the person who called in wondering if I should text my ex-guy I briefly dated a year ago who had moved back to Canada. And I texted him about 4 seconds after listening to you tell me that I should text him. That was last night. And he texted me back this morning and was very positive. And he was like, your words are very sweet and it's nice to hear from you. And we're having a beautiful winter here, and I hope that your whole family is well.
Hey, Dan, episode 954, and the person at the sex party who was turned off with the wrong pronouns being used. Rather than saying what they don't want to be called, the thing is to give people clear instruction about what they do want to be called. Just like you said, to negotiate how they would like to be touched. Part of the negotiation is to tell people what they would like, rather than leaving a void by just saying what they don't like. So, hey, call me Tiger, or whatever terminology that they come up with that they like. That's easy for the sex partner to remember and easy for the participant, your caller, to feel comfortable with.
And we're going to leave it there. Got a question for me? Go to savage.love/askdan to record your question directly onto our website. Or you can make a voice memo on your phone and email us your question or your comment by sending it to q@savage.love. Or you can call us at 206-302-2064 and leave us a message on the vintage Panasonic KX-T1470 telephone answering machine that I got Nancy for Christmas. The 20th anniversary Hump Film Festival kicked off this weekend in San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland. We have an amazing new lineup of films. Where else are you going to see a sexy sock puppet musical with real cum shots? Nowhere else but Hump. To find out when Hump is coming to a city near you, go to humpfilmfest.com. Right now, you can watch the trailer and then order your tickets. We have shows this weekend in San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland, then shows in cities all across the country over the next few months. Go find out when Hump is coming to you, humpfilmfest.com. Follow me on Instagram and Threads at Dan Savage. Follow me at Blue Sky at Dan Savage. Follow Meredith Goldstein on Instagram and Threads at Meredith Goldstein. Check out her website, meredithgoldstein.com, where you can find your way to Love Letters, her column, and the Love Letters podcast. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian, and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy, we will all be back at you next week for another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thank you for downloading, and San Francisco, I will be in you this weekend hosting Hub. See you there at the Brava Theater.